What is identity actually made of? And what role does the media play in the polarized debate on representation and racism? My name is Antonia Sankey, and these are some of the questions I will discuss today with German-Indian writer Mithu Sanyal. Welcome to GMF Talk.
I'm so happy to be here.
In your novel, the protagonist is Nivedita, aka Identitti, like the title of the book. And she is a German Indian in her 20s, a well known blogger that is trying to find her voice as a mixed race woman in Germany. And Nivedita is in awe of her supervisor and person of color role model, the post colonial studies professor Saraswati. But then suddenly the news break that the superstar professor is actually white and not a person of color. So, what is identity? Where are the mixed race role models in Germany? And is there such a thing as transraciality? Identity poses much more questions than it actually answers, I thought while reading it. Ms. Sanya, so first question to you. Which question do you want your readers to consider most? Which one question?
I don't think there's one question, but I want people to think about being mixed race. I think really it's a novel about being mixed race because we haven't got any novels about being mixed race in Germany. It's like people like me have just suddenly developed by a kind of genetical mutation in the 1990s, and we haven't been there before. And then I find out that Thomas Mann is actually mixed race. His mother comes from Brazil, and he writes a lot about being mixed race, and his brother Heinrich actually wrote a novel that's called Between the Races. And so the Nazis knew that he was mixed race, but we don't. And that says a lot about German culture. So it's kind of like it's hidden in plain sight. And I wanted to put it in the light, so to speak. And we're not tragic. That's the other thing. I've always been told being mixed race is something that makes you less stable and you're more prone to depression. So my parents were warned, oh, you're going to have a baby. That's going to be difficult for the baby. Maybe reconsider, maybe don't have a child. And I find out all about these marriages that they were forbidden, that people were not supposed to have mixed race kids. So it's not a coincidence that I'm writing about this now and I haven't been writing about it earlier on. And the first novel is a mixed race first person narrator is The Buddha of Suburbia by Hanif Qureshi, and that was published in 1990. 1990, that was the first novel.
I think for all our listeners, this is a very important message also of how the situation for mixed race people has been in Germany to this point. So, to maybe take that to the next level, what is then, you say, the significance of identity in 2021? What did the concept mean 10 years ago? What does it stand for today? And what will it maybe mean in 10 more years?
I think 10 years ago, when we asked about identity, usually we were talking about gender. So people were very clearly saying, oh, I'm a woman, or I'm trans, or I'm a man, or whatever. And now when we're talking about identities in the plural, we usually mean race. And the reason for that is that we haven't been talking about race at all in Germany. I mean, we have been talking at the university, at academia, but not as a society as a whole. And I remember when I wanted to talk about racism, people told me, oh, no, there are no human races there, which is true. So there can't be any racism. End of theme. And if you want to talk about racism, me too, then you are racist. and so kind of we were. And I noticed that myself writing about these themes, it was like writing through a mist, and it was really, really difficult to find words for it. And it's no coincidence that most of the words I use in the novel are English words. So they've been imported from like POC, like race. I mean, the German word Rasse has got a very different meaning to race. Race means the socially constructedness of human races which don't exist. And Rasse just means biological races. And there is a difference. It doesn't mean there's no racism in England or in America, obviously not. But it means we know that it's a social construct. In Germany, we really have all these discussions. Oh, maybe human races are a thing after all. Biological. No, they're not. They really are not.
In your novel, you include tweets and other commentaries of real life public intellectuals, right? As well as references to actual facts, attacks to the Hanau terror attack in the center of Germany, where a white man killed 9 local people of color in 2020. And your story is also inspired by the case of Rachel Dolezal in the US 6 years ago, who presented herself as Black, even though she was white. But your novel Identity is a fictional story nonetheless. So I would be interested to know, what can this fictional literature actually do that journalistic writing cannot?
I genuinely think there's one sentence in the book where Nivedita says she believes that books can save your soul. I don't think it's that easy, but I think that narratives do something to us that factual writing can't. And so they do something to me on a deeper level. And one part of the book, or one strand of the story, is about forgiveness, because it's not about, is Saraswati brown, is she white? At the end of the first chapter, she's debunked. So it's all about, what does it mean to us? What does it do to us? Is there a possibility of forgiving? Is there a possibility of healing? And to talk about all these things was not just easier, it was important for me to write in a narrative form, to show that all the different characters come to the same story with their own stories, with their own background, with their own physicalities. And so they're all upset about what Saraswati has done, but they're all upset in different ways. And so they all react in different ways, and there's not one right way of seeing it. It's not Saraswati is right or Nivedita is right, they're all right and wrong at the same time, and it can different truths can be next to each other. I'm not Donald Trump. I'm not talking about alternative truths or alternative facts. I'm talking about the multidimensionality of reality and how important it is to see that just because the world looks like this for me and it's important doesn't mean that your truth isn't important as well. And we've got a way of communicating this.
What is the role of the media in these debates that we've just talked about a little bit on racism and issues like gender sensitive language, for example? What is the role of the media here?
Well, in Germany, we always say media is the force in the state. So it's a force power, and so we have a responsibility. And very often we think we're just reacting to what's happening, but we are also setting an agenda. And most of the time, we're not conscious of that. It's also that social media, for example, social media plays a big role in my novel. And I found out that less than 2% of all Germans are on Twitter. So, but we think everybody is, because all the journalists are. So we think this is a mirror of the world. And we react very much to the kinds of debates that are online. So if the debates online tend to be very hard, they tend to be very black and white, because you've only got a few characters, so you tend to be a lot more black and white. And for me, it was important to talk about, we've got to talk about our differences, not because we're essentially different, but just because we have different needs in certain situations. But it's also very important to talk about our similarities. We've got a lot more in common, all of us, than we have got differences. And we tend to not see that. And the media could be a training ground for compassion, for empathy, for understanding, showing people how to understand different viewpoints. And at the moment, you show people how to not understand, how to push your point through. And so I would like a kind of reform. And we've got this idea, oh, the listeners are so stupid, they can only understand sound bites. No, people are actually not. That's the reason why podcasts are such a success, where people talk for hours, and people are listening to it. People obviously want a deeper kind of conversation.
So I get from what you're saying that you do see a danger in the growing polarization that we have there in our society, especially on social media. But would you suggest that the debate on cancel culture and identities has been also long overdue, and is just actually maybe rather healthy for our democracies in the end?
If there were a debate, that would be great. At the moment, we're just all hitting each other over the head. So you're wrong, you're cancelling, no, you're cancelling. So, the thing is, I don't actually think there's a growing polarization, but we are seeing it more, because that is what social media does. It's like a kind of magnifying glass for things that are happening anyway. So if I look back at the 80s, for example, there was a lot of polarization in society. If you go back even more, obviously the polarization gets even clearer. But I think at the moment, because of all these alternative medias, we haven't got a shared truth. Before there was this kind of dominant truth in society that even if people didn't like it, they had to kind of agree with it. When I was a kid, there were 3 programs on TV and that was it. And they told us how we had to look at the world. And I disagreed absolutely with a lot of that. But we were kind of living in a shared world, so to speak. And at the moment, it's sometimes I go somewhere and I'm invited to do lectures or talks, and I notice even when I talk about statistics, people come with different statistics, and it is really hard to communicate. We've got to we have got a responsibility to build these bridges and not to end conversation, because at the moment we always say, oh, you're seeing it in a different way, so that's the end. I'm only talking to you if you see it my way. And it doesn't matter what we're talking about. I mean, we're not, even if we're not talking about race, people are hating each other because of vaccinations. If you told me 10 years, 5 years, 3 years ago, I would have laughed out loud. Oh no, that's going to be a real difference. And suddenly there are massive differences, and we got to stay in contact. And that's the wonderful thing about Saraswati, for example. After all her lies and everything, she stays in contact. So Nivedita goes there and stays at her flat for 3 weeks. And Saraswati doesn't say, you're crazy. She says, oh, you're angry with me. Of course you're angry with me because I'm so important to you. So she doesn't do it for the motives that Nivedita wants her to talk to her, but she doesn't sever contact. And I think we can only solve problems if we stay in contact. Doesn't mean when we stay in contact, it's a guarantee, but if you sever contact, that's the end of anything that can happen there.
Thank you so much, Mithu Sanyal. And I think we could go on talking here for quite a long time, because those insights of yours are so valuable, I think, to not only see the black and white, but to, in all situations, look beyond that and continue the dialogue. But for today, I think we'll leave it at that. So thank you for diving into Nivedita's quest for identity with us today a little bit, and for sharing some insights on your work and on the current role of media. We are very happy to have you with us as part of the 2021 Global Media Forum Conversations. So, herzlichen Dank, Mithu Sanyal.
It's a pleasure.
And for those of you that have now become interested, if you didn't know the novel before, the English translation of Identity will be published next year in 2022. So look out for that. And in the meantime, stay tuned for talks and impulses to come on this channel. And please do let us know also what you think about today's discussion in the comments. Thank you and goodbye for now.